Thought I'd switch it up for this bonus episode and get straight into it, as today we're talking about Marvel vs. Capcom 2, a game that heavily inspired a lot of the things that I enjoy and do to this day. A couple years ago, Maximilian Dood started the movement Free MVC2, which led to a lot of content surrounding it, and while I had always wanted to participate in it, I also needed to improve my skills a bit before I put my work in. And while it does mean I missed out on the majority of the momentum of that movement, it also means I got to make something that I'm happy with, which is ultimately more important for me. So my main team consists of Jin, Juggernaut, and Spider-Man. Ironically, I thought Jin would be so simple to draw until I actually Googled him and how he works. And there's so many pouches and so many little button studs that I had to draw and everything. It's a really good thing he's on my main team because I like him so much. In that same vein, I've never really been a fan of drawing Spider-Man, especially because of his webs. I think I vocalized that in the last vid. But unfortunately, he's also still part of the main team, so I have to take an honest stab at him. I don't really have a criticism on Juggernaut, especially in this pose. He's actually working with a symmetry tool, so no, that's pretty cool. Both this piece and the later piece have variant colors because I prefer the mindset of me putting my favorite colors for originality's sake, but I also understand that when I'm dealing with these characters, like classic fighting game characters and also classic comic characters or fan favorite characters, then I also have to recognize that those regular colors are iconic and they're also going to be more recognizable than the colors that I like to choose. And I'm not that big enough of an artist right now to stray from the path and not even think about putting iconic colors. It just is what it is. So while we're watching more coloring happen, I do want to announce that one of my next art pieces is going to be Street Fighter 3 related, in which I'm going to aim to draw all the characters as well as making a favorite color variant, because at this point that's just what I do whenever I'm making something fighting game related. And it's going to be a while, it's going to take a long time to do, and so if all goes well, if everything goes the way that I want it to, then we're going to be able to watch this progress on Twitch. So feel free to visit me. The link's in the description. It's twitch.tv/theshadychamp. I usually stream a little after the time that these videos come out, usually right after these videos would end. If you watch it on time, that's when I'm streaming. And so you can pull up and check in with me, talk with me, whatever, as long as the Wi-Fi is willing, of course. If you want to catch me playing video games, don't worry, I do that too in addition to drawing. And right now we're on Batman Arkham Origins and Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. Maybe another game soon. We do a quick little variety, mostly superhero related, generally RPG related. I'm getting into more fighting games, but I don't want you to see the scrub in me. But don't worry about all that. Just hit up the Twitch if you're super interested and if you want to hang out and if you want some live commentary and live tips and whatever. So in this favorite color variant, I don't actually use the color editor in the magic wand tool area. Instead, I opt to color the various shades and highlights and flats manually, this takes a lot of time, and for some reason selecting the layer of the shades or the highlight didn't necessarily get all of the shades and highlights, so it would make like these little pixels of the old color even though I would have the new color like supposedly covering over that area. It made the blending a little complicated, but I got through. It is what it is. Jin would have made the method of using the magic wand tool complicated anyway due to me using a pure white for his normal colors, and that's slightly harder to manipulate than a slightly pink white or a slightly blue white, for example. But I could have tried it with Spider-Man or Juggernaut, but I was already in the zone because I had to do it manually for Jin. At least in my head, I had to do it manually for Jin. It added a lot of time, even though I was in the zone and didn't mind it adding a lot of time. Canonically, it does add a lot of time to do those things manually. So if you find yourself wanting to make variants, then by all means go and check the magic wand tool and manipulate the hue, saturation, and brightness. Don't be like me, unless you're just in the zone. Then by all means do whatever. Due to the nature of this piece being thought of having 3 similar sized parts in its design, I'm able to mess with this video a bit to show you the process of it much better than some of the more vertical pieces that I've made. So the next Marvel vs. Capcom 2 piece contains the villains that I enjoy playing, though I didn't really think to add Bison or Akuma, they just really slipped my mind. We start off with Doom doing his photon array, though only now I kind of realize that Doom has a giant belt, not a rope acting as a belt, but it is what it is. Next up is Blackheart, doing the pose before he does his super. Manually, I make the quills that make up his mane? Hair? Whatever. Anyway, the third villain was supposed to be Thanos with his Infinity Gauntlet, but even though I finished a rough draft of him, I instead opted for Magneto, because I had a really cool idea that was going to make him look really dope, especially with the variant color, and it also didn't help that that idea was going to be easily done with the symmetry tool, and that was going to benefit him more than Thanos. Now it's time for the line art, the shades, and the rest of the razzle dazzle. Outside of Doom, the symmetry assist is doing MVP work. Don't ever let anybody, and don't even let yourself, shame you for doing assists or references, especially because at the end of the day, you're the person that's going to have to draw that image and sit down and do it for X amount of time. Just have the good sense to know the differences between a reference, a study, and an homage, and then actually stealing the work and claiming it as your own. Don't be that guy, but also don't be that guy that sees an homage or a reference and be like, oh my god, you're this thief, you're a thief. Don't be that guy. doing a little more coloring here, don't mind us, just making small talk. So, fun fact, MVC2 Doom's photons are actually pink, but I decided that the color yellow used in his Marvel vs. Capcom 3 photons would work a lot better with the classic green outfit color-wise. It's just a little thing, but it goes a long way for me. I do, however, use pink as the photons for his variant outfit, as it goes a lot better with his navy coloring. Magneto's variant is also Marvel vs. Capcom 3 inspired, but I was swearing up and down that this color was used in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 until I actually googled it and found out I was wrong. It did not stop me from wanting to use it, I just knew it was going to look dope. Instead of manually coloring the variant colors this time, I opted to use the hue, saturation, and brightness settings in the Magic Wand tool. It was a much quicker process, and I'm talking hours were saved here. But you really do lose the fun of going in and coloring it yourself. So that's the trade-off, but honestly, when we're talking hours, it's really an easy choice, unless you just really like being in that zone. To have more ease when changing colors for the variants, I made separate layers for flats, shading, highlights, and color lines for each character. However, due to the size of the piece, I could only have so many layers since I use a standard iPad in Procreate. I think the max for me was like 18 at this point, and I already had 13 layers in use, which meant that when I got to the variant layers, I would often have to merge those layers that I changed the color of before I could get another layer to change that color. So when I made Doom's flats, I would have to merge it with Doom's shades, and when I made Doom's highlights, I would have to merge it with the already merged Doom's flats and shades, because we just did not have that much space for it all to exist in the void, even though I kind of wanted it to at the time. It is what it is. But it would get increasingly problematic as I wanted to make a background later, though there's no real way to show it here. But I do want to point out that like layer management is a thing that you're going to have to work on, especially if you want to make art on a budget with a regular iPad and not an iPad Pro. I wanted to use the colored lines for rendering, but I also utilized the layer mask to change the color of any lines working as detail while preserving the black outlines. As we near the end again, I want to thank you for checking out this series, and I don't want you to forget to hit that like, subscribe, and let us know how your art's going, or if you have any art tips to help me or any other artists that you wish you had gotten when you were a beginner. If this video gets a lot of attention and a lot of likes, I'm definitely going to go in and make a video that's going to have a bunch of this is what I wish I knew, and not just the basic stuff, just like you should have a texture, what if you colored your lines, those kinds of things. Just a lot of tips that would help people out, but that's only if we're going to get a lot of attention on this. Not to sound like a clout chaser, but really getting a lot of views feels like the reward of saying like you're not screaming into a void. But anyway, thank you for watching. This is the end of the video. Goodbye. Stay drawing.